This is a case, about Lisa Cecilia Hardum, a woman who was engaged to this guy, this real tyrant, who turned their nice apartment, a luxury apartment really, into a prison. And look, controlling behavior in relationships, I mean, it's not uncommon and it's super dangerous. It's when someone tries to totally dominate their partner, to kind of force them to adapt to their own needs through like intimidation and shows of power and, you know, just outright humiliation and total control. And so often the victim, because they're just filled with this fear and guilt that's been put in their head, they don't even realize they're in a destructive situation. The story of this young woman, Lisa Cecilia Hardum, honestly, it shows you exactly what a relationship with a total control freak can lead to. She naively believed she'd met the love of her life, but she didn't even notice as her fiance became a monster, turning their luxurious apartment into a legit prison with 24-hour video surveillance. Holy shit. This whole thing ended up causing an international scandal, and I mean, it was all over the news. This guy, he tried to make it look like Lisa was mentally unstable and he tried to pass this cold-blooded crime off as an accident or like a suicide. But here's the thing. Despite all his money and all his connections, he didn't get away with it. So let's try to understand how the man she loved turned into a monster who hid his inhuman attitude behind what he was calling care. Our story's main character, Lisa, was born in Canada on June 12th, 1981, in the suburbs of Toronto. She was the second kid in her family. Lisa was raised with her older brother, Jason, and they were always super close. They were raised independently by their single mom, Joanna. The brother and sister didn't remember their dad because he left the family when they were really little, and I mean, he just wasn't a part of their lives anymore. Lisa Cecilia grew up as a really active, very driven girl. From an early age, she was into sports. She and her brother went to martial arts classes together. She liked playing soccer and volleyball, but her main thing was always ballet. She was at the dance studio every single day, practicing for hours at the bar. She was tall and slender even as a kid, but professional ballet requires a super strict diet, which was, kind of bad for a growing body. As a teenager, Lisa ended up developing anorexia because of her eating disorders. For a long time, she didn't say anything about it, thinking she could handle it herself. But when her weight got to this critically low number, her mom, dear Lord, she sounded the alarm and she put her daughter in a clinic where Lisa had to spend several months to get her health back and gain her weight back. After she graduated from school, Lisa kept taking dance classes, but she also decided she wanted to work in the beauty industry. While she was in university, she got a job as a perfumer in a big cosmetics chain store. In her free time, she studied the finer points of makeup and hairdressing. In 2005, after she turned 24, Lisa decided she needed a major change in her life. She wanted to move all the way to the other side of the world, to Australia. And she had a few reasons for it. First off, she wanted to live somewhere with a warmer and milder climate. And second, she wanted to see the world. She got a 1-year work visa and flew to a different continent. Her mom, Joanna, actually flew with her, staying with her for the first few months to make sure she was okay and got settled in her new place. Joanna went back to Toronto then with her mind at ease, pretty sure her daughter could take care of herself. Lisa settled in Sydney, where she rented this cozy apartment, and she pretty quickly got a job at a small local cosmetology company. When her visa expired, she made the decision to just move to Australia permanently. She extended her stay for another year and then started putting together all the paperwork to get her citizenship. Okay, her personal life. Honestly, it wasn't easy. The thing is, Lisa always preferred to date older men. And I guess you can't help but wonder if the lack of a father played a big role there. So she was always drawn to more mature men looking for like support and protection. In 2006, Lisa did a great job in her interview at Sydney Cosmetics and was hired. Soon after that, she started a romantic relationship with a coworker who was almost twice her age. After just a few months, they decided to live together and Lisa moved into his apartment. A couple more months after that, she introduced her boyfriend to her mom and her brother, and they approved of her choice. The couple did a lot of traveling, all over the world. They went on vacation to the Seychelles, to Paris, and they even went to the famous carnival in Rio de Janeiro. He actually even proposed to Lisa, and she was, of course, super happy to accept. But about a year after they got engaged, they broke up. Lisa didn't go into detail about why, but she hinted that the really big age difference had a lot to do with it. In 2010, Lisa graduated from the Sydney College of Stylists and got a job as a hairdresser at this really popular beauty salon where she quickly earned the respect of her coworkers and the trust of her clients. At the same time, she got a new boyfriend, but their romance didn't last very long because Lisa found out he was married. She wasn't about to break up someone else's family, so she ended things fast. But not long before that, at some party, this guy had introduced her to a friend of his, a businessman named Simon Gitney. And this acquaintance, you guys, it turned out to be fatal for Lisa. So who is Simon Gitney? Simon was born in Maryland in December 1973 into a very religious, very large family of Lebanese immigrants. He had 5 other brothers and sisters, and his parents raised them all with a lot of strictness and obedience. However, Simon, even from a young age, he had problems controlling his emotions and dealing with his anger, and he was also really possessive. He couldn't stand being rejected, and he often just, used his fists. So, all this stuff, this eventually led to some pretty serious problems with the law. The first time Simon was locked up, he was just 18 years old. He'd gone to his ex-girlfriend's job at a store and started openly bothering her. The owner stepped in for the girl and, threw him out, but Simon came back. He came back with some friends who grabbed the owner and held him while Simon just beat the hell out of him. That time, he only did a few months and was released on bail, supposedly for good behavior. But 3 years later, he was arrested again, this time for theft. He resisted hard, though. He got into a fight and bit off a piece of one of the cop's ears. I mean, goddamn. He was facing some serious time for that little stunt, but the pastor from the Lebanese Christian church where his whole family went, he actually stepped in on his behalf. So Simon ended up only serving a year and a half. In 2000, he was on the police's radar again. This time, he was arrested for having and selling illegal substances. But again, the sentence was super light. He only served 2 of the 4 years he was supposed to. After he got out of that one, Simon, to everyone, it looked like he turned his life around. He moved to Sydney, and with a few buddies, he started this pretty successful business making and selling high-end women's shoes. The business brought in this really steady, solid income. So Simon got rich quick. He bought a fancy apartment in this prestigious neighborhood, a premium car, and he was very careful to hide his past. From roommates to girlfriends, everybody. At that party, Simon and Lisa swapped numbers, and he called her not long after. Their casual conversations kind of, just evolved into a friendship. And then in January of 2010, when Lisa mentioned that she wasn't happy with her living situation and wanted to find a different apartment, Simon, he just kind of generously offered her a room in his super nice apartment to stay in for free while she looked for a new place. Lisa took him up on it, even though her mom, Joanna, was a little worried about it. But Lisa just told her it was temporary and that she and Simon were just friends. Honestly, she kind of figured at the time that because he was so into his looks and all his piercings, he was probably into guys, but she was wrong. For the first couple of months, Simon really did keep his distance. They lived in separate rooms, and there was no hint of anything romantic going on, but gradually, they got closer. The spark happened, and they started this relationship that got serious fast. At the time it started, Simon was 37 and Lisa was 28. Simon felt like a prince from a fairy tale to her. He was outgoing, happy, and he just showered her with gifts and cool surprises. They started going everywhere together, including to this elite sports club that Simon had been a member of for years. Lisa, bless her heart. She was so sure that she had finally found her true love and that they were going to have a long, happy life together. She would just gush about him to her mom and brother and friends. She had no idea this fairy tale was about to end. And then just 6 months into the relationship, Simon's behavior started to change. But it was so gradual that Lisa didn't even notice, She just thought he was doing everything for her own good. He slowly cut her off from her friends and her family, just completely erased all her personal boundaries. He tried to change her views, her taste, her behavior, basically making her fit his mold. In June of 2010, right after she turned 29, Simon started pushing her hard to quit her job, saying they didn't appreciate her and she could find a better paying one. But Lisa loved her job at the salon, and she had a lot of regular clients, so she didn't get why she should quit. She refused. Simon was not having it, and in August, he showed up at her salon and made this huge scene, which basically forced her to turn in her resignation. Lisa was, completely shocked by his behavior, but Simon just told her it was for the best. He told her she didn't have to work anymore because his money was enough for both of them to live comfortably and never want for anything. A month and a half later, they moved into a new luxury apartment on the 15th floor of an elite building. As it came out later, the place was it was literally full of hidden surveillance cameras that Lisa, of course, had no clue about. Simon also gave her an expensive new phone and a laptop, but he had already put spyware on them that let him track all her messages, her emails, and listen in on her calls. Plus, he got into all her social media accounts and just started quietly deleting friends' posts and photos and reading all her private messages. It was total control. Simon's grip on Lisa tightened every single day, but as this experienced manipulator, he made it seem like she was doing all this on her own. He had taken over every single part of her life, leaving her with no privacy at all. He wouldn't let her wear makeup, claiming it was too much and looked vulgar. He bought her this kind of ugly, buttoned-up clothes in gray and black, and he threw out all of her old outfits, saying they were too revealing and that men would stare at her. The only time she left the apartment was with him, and they only went to places he picked out. He even forbade her from going to the gym. Instead, he bought a bunch of expensive exercise machines and told her she could just work out at home now. Lisa's friends list on social media just kept getting smaller, and eventually he convinced her to just delete all her accounts. She didn't have any friends left in real life either, and all of her contacts and phone calls were monitored constantly. The only people he let her talk to were her mom and her brother. In December of 2010, Lisa decided to fly home to Canada for Christmas with her family. Simon was supposed to go with her, but at the very last second, his plans just fell apart because of some urgent business. He really didn't want his girlfriend going alone, but she literally had to beg him because she hadn't seen her mom and her brother in over a year. He finally agreed, but with all these strict rules and conditions she had to follow without fail. When she got there, Jason and Joanna, man, they were just floored by how much Lisa had changed in the past year. She was nothing like the vibrant, cheerful person she used to be. She was just a shell of herself. There was no makeup on her face. Her beautiful hair was just pulled back in a ponytail and hidden under a hat. Her clothes were all these baggy, unattractive things, and they were all black. But the most terrifying part wasn't even how she looked. Lisa would jump every single time her phone rang and immediately grab it. That was one of Simon's rules. She had to answer right away, no matter what time it was or what she was doing. She stayed at her mom's house the whole time. She wouldn't see her friends, and she barely ever went out. Joanna, her mom, she was so scared by her daughter's behavior that she decided to have a serious talk with her. That's when Lisa broke down. She admitted that Simon always knew where she was, who she talked to, and what she said on the phone. Lisa also told her that Simon didn't let her work or see her friends or go to the gym or have any hobbies. She just had no friends left at all. Her mom was absolutely shocked. She started begging her daughter to just stay in Canada because there was nothing for her to go back to in Australia. But Lisa told her that she loved Simon and she didn't want to break things off. She really believed it was just a tough patch in their relationship because they hadn't even been together for a year and that he would eventually calm down. She even said that he cared about her and wished her nothing but the best. Despite her family's pleas to stay and their attempts to convince her that the relationship was just unhealthy, she went back to Australia to be with Simon. She reassured her mom, saying there was nothing to worry about and that Simon loved her and would never hurt her. After Lisa got back, things just got worse. Simon completely forbade her from leaving the apartment. And if they did go out together, she had to look only at her feet so she wouldn't make eye contact with other men. Oh, and he started calling her by her middle name, Cecilia, because he thought it sounded more decent. In the spring of 2011, Lisa started complaining about an old leg injury from ballet. Instead of taking her to the hospital, Simon hired a female physical therapist who would come to their home 3 times a week. This woman became Lisa's only friend and confidant, and Lisa just poured her heart out to her about the nightmare she was living. On June 12th, for Lisa's 30th birthday, Simon decided to throw a party at the most expensive restaurant in Sydney. But the only guests there were his family and his friends. Lisa wasn't allowed to invite anyone to her own birthday. At the end of the night, Simon proposed to her, putting a ring on her finger. Lisa accepted, and then she just started to cry. But everyone there noticed they weren't tears of joy, they were tears of total despair. When she got back to the apartment, Lisa called her mom, and she told her about the engagement, just sobbing into the phone. But Joanna was not happy about it at all. She started pleading with her daughter to leave this man and come home to Canada as fast as she could. Lisa's only response was to tell her mom never to bring that up on the phone again. At that point, she'd already realized her fiancé was listening to her calls, even though she couldn't prove it. For a little while, Lisa tried to distract herself with the wedding plans. But when she tried to consult with Simon about something for the big day, he just rudely cut her off and told her he would choose the venue, buy the dress, and make the guest list. Lisa was just completely crushed because she had no say in anything, even this. During another visit from the physical therapist, Lisa finally admitted that she couldn't keep going on like this, but she felt trapped because her fiancé wouldn't let her go. So together they came up with a plan. On each visit, Lisa would give the masseuse some of her stuff to hold on to, but she had to do it without Simon noticing. On July 28th, Simon, in a hurry, left his laptop at home. He usually took it everywhere with him. Lisa saw her chance and looked at it, and her worst fears were confirmed. She found the spyware program he was using to get all the data from her phone, along with a bunch of recordings of her conversations with her mom. But the most horrifying discovery was the footage from all the surveillance cameras in every room of their apartment. That same day, Lisa used the physical therapist's phone to call her mom and asked her to get on the next flight to come and take her home. But Joanna just couldn't get off work that fast. She just needed a little more time, to find an excuse to switch shifts with a coworker. And I mean, that woman, the physiotherapist, she never truly forgave herself for that delay. Not ever. Back at the apartment, Simon realized pretty much immediately that his fiancée had gotten a hold of his laptop and had seen all the spyware. Lisa, she was just crying, trying to understand why she deserved to be treated that way. But Simon, Jesus Christ, he just told her that he'd done it all for her own good. Can you even imagine? So, accident or murder? The next day, July 29th, a serious conversation took place between them. The recording of it was later presented in court. And believe me, it's chilling. Lisa was just in tears, begging to go home, but Simon, he just calmly and confidently told her that that was never, ever going to happen. He just kept telling her to calm down and dead-ass claimed she had mental problems. Then, on the morning of July 30th, 2011, Lisa got up early. She got fully dressed, put her documents and some essentials in her purse. She locked herself in the bathroom and made one last call to her mother, telling her that if anything happened to her, it would be Simon's fault. Straight up. It seems like Lisa was trying to leave the apartment without him noticing while he slept, but she didn't make it. What happened next? Honestly, you can only guess. According to neighbors, they heard a scream in the hallway, but they didn't have time to react because it just went dead quiet. And then exactly 1 minute later, a young woman fell from the 15th floor balcony, crashing to her death. Several people on the street also heard the scream and saw a body falling from that height, but they couldn't even realize what was happening. A guy who was walking his dog that morning, he was the closest to the scene. He heard a noise, looked up, and he saw a man holding something big, which he then just threw down. Oh, God. When passersby finally got to where she fell, they saw a young woman on the ground, but all attempts to help her were completely useless. She died instantly from her injuries. 3 minutes later, Simon in his pajamas ran out into the street. He was crying, man, saying he didn't know how he was going to live his life and claiming that he hadn't managed to catch his fiancée in time. At first glance, it looked like a horrible accident, but Simon was quick to claim that she had voluntarily taken her own life. But then the strange stuff started, a note in his pocket and some terrifying video. Strange things began as soon as the body was taken to the morgue and examined. In different pockets, they found fragments of a note torn into tiny pieces. And the text said, "There are cameras everywhere in the apartment." Lisa was probably scared that Simon would find the note, so she turned it into this kind of fragmented message scattered everywhere. A check showed that, yeah, there were a lot of cameras in that apartment, but the hard drive with the recordings was missing. Simon, of course, claimed there was no video recording at all. But a camera in the communal hallway caught something frightening. The short clip shows Lisa running out of the apartment, screaming for help, but her fiancé just grabs her from behind, covers her mouth, and drags her back in. This happened a minute before she fell. And on Simon's laptop, they found a recording of the conversation he and Lisa had the night before the tragedy, as well as the spyware he used to keep tabs on her. According to Simon, he and Lisa had an argument that morning, and she became hysterical. He said she ran into the hallway screaming, but he brought her back because he didn't want a scene for the neighbors. In the apartment, he picked up the phone to call her mother, but at that moment, he claimed Lisa ran out to the balcony and threw herself down. He said he ran after her but didn't get to her in time. He claimed she had threatened to take her own life before, but he hadn't taken her seriously. And the spy program? He attributed that to his concern for her safety. At the trial, Simon was accompanied by a new woman, this 22-year-old model named Rachel Louise, who was just eerily similar to his dead fiancé. For real. But later, people said that she just wanted to be famous from this high-profile case, so she was talking to the press and on television, saying Simon would never, ever raise his hand to a woman. Simon's lawyers tried to say that Lisa had a mental disorder, was prone to hysterics, and could have taken her own life. They even brought up her history with anorexia. The defense also argued that Simon, being shorter, couldn't have physically lifted Lisa and thrown her off the balcony. But a trainer from the gym that Simon had gone to for years, he refuted that. He said that Simon worked with heavy weights, was much stronger than he looked, and could have easily lifted Lisa. The fact that there were no fingerprints on the railing or the glass barrier also supported this, because she couldn't have jumped without leaning on them. And then there was the physiotherapist. She testified in court, telling them everything Lisa had told her in detail about what had happened to her and about the belongings she'd given her in the hope of escaping. It was her testimony that was decisive. Simon Gitney was found guilty of murdering his fiancée and sentenced to 26 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 18 years. After the verdict was announced, Rachel Louise threw a tantrum and started yelling insults at the judge, and she was removed from the courtroom. All of Simon's and his lawyers' attempts to fight the decision were rejected, and the verdict remained in force. Rachel eventually dumped him, saying in an interview that it was just too difficult to maintain a relationship with him in prison, but she remains convinced of his innocence.